Here, this is what we got for you today. Pikarinoobs and the Papis. That's the first match we'll be broadcasting here. Belt Slap versus Snake Pit for the second spot in those finals. Semifinals, best of 5. Finals, best of 3. And Gormizer, the quarterfinals, best of 1. That leaves some opportunity for some shakeups to happen.
And we got exactly that. If you're looking at that and you're wondering, why would that even come up? Pikarinoobs is a team. You'd probably recognize a few of these names.
Yeah.
They've been in the console league, overpoweredusb, Rapio, as well as IDavy. They played on Rival. A lot of members that have kind of been around the scene. But the team they beat is the team
Freshly
that you would
forged,
know,
yeah.
or should at least know, every single player. Joshi Collis, Deathwalker, Pretty Prime, and Fails. People who have been either in the minor league, pro league, at any given time. If you want to go back in time in SMITE esports, they have been a huge set of names. And for the most part, they had a really close game.
Sure.
It all actually pivots a little bit later on, but early on, you get First Blood going in one way, Pretty Prime being able to show up on this Merlin a little later. 2 Gold Fury fights that are very essential to it. The first one goes the way of the console boys. The second one ends up going to Freshly Forged. It's incredibly good, realistically, for both teams the entire time, up until a Phoenix Siege that we'll be seeing in just a second here that comes down. And realistically, when you look at anyone on this team, you're going to end up looking towards Rapio as one of the biggest playmakers, who I think is the one who will turn it around for them. A lot on the side of Freshly Forged was kind of given by this Merlin, but these dunks just took everything away from them. Gets Joshi there, sets themselves up for a solid Phoenix defense, and then that translates again to the left side of the map over around the Fire Giant pit in this jungle. Another beautiful dunk that sets themselves up for more and more kills. They get a Fire Giant. They get a second Fire Giant a little bit later, and then you get to this area about 37 minutes in. Pretty Prime just blinks too far. He goes way too deep.
Yeah, just
There's no other way to gloss over that one. He sees a lot of low health bars. He goes in, and he pays for it, the iron price, and ends up costing them the game because they just don't have the damage to defend.
And you looked, I was kind of paying attention to the game time as well as the gold, and we've seen this a few times over the last couple of days where a team has the lead for the first 20 or so minutes of the game.
Yeah.
And that was much the case there for Freshly Forged, and sometimes it's those Phoenix Sieges that can really turn things around. That it's a best of 1, though, and that's sort of, I think, where things can maybe go wrong. I don't know if maybe it's too much to insinuate, but you extend this one to a best of 5 or even onto a best of 3, maybe Freshly Forged has a better chance.
It also depends on how you're feeling after that one, right? When it's just like, and a loss like that, especially with how close it can be, some of those stats are going to hit a lot harder for it. But you could see, and actually the one name that kind of stands out the most, Pikarino, the guy that it's kind of named after.
Right.
His Kukulkan was stellar that game. In fact, being able to keep up and kind of pass over Pretty Prime, a little bit less damage, but a lot of the ults he had, especially towards the late game, he is eviscerating people he hits with them, or at the worst case scenario for him was, oh, I hit 2 people and maybe didn't get the kill. Either way, he was perfectly happy with it. IDavy did well as well, so it was a lot of really good setup from them. It was a beautifully played game, and they earned their spot here in the semis.
Well, that's certainly not it for Freshly Forged. You know, you can still come back in and hope to qualify moving forward. Is that a team in Freshly Forged really quick that you maybe expect to come back and qualify to the groups?
I could not imagine a world where they don't make it to groups unless they just decided after last week. They were like, you know what? Never again. We're never, ever touching SMITE one more time. And that's not going to happen. Again, you have so many big names on that team. I expect they'll probably play in week 2. If they don't make it there, something's a little shaky, but they'll probably play in week 3. I don't imagine a group stage without that team.
Well, again, that's what can happen in those one-game sets. You know, sometimes upsets happen, and that's what happened here. So that's the Pikarinoobs. We've talked about them a little bit. Their semifinal opponent today, the Papis. Talk to me a little bit about this roster.
Papis have been doing the thing for longer than a lot of people have been doing the thing. They've been playing SMITE for years. In fact, this is actually one of the more interesting teams because they have been in the minor league scene for, again, years and years and years. And I would argue are one of the most improved teams I think I've seen. I was actually lucky enough when I was doing Challenger Circuit before I was hired here to cast over the Papis. And from where they were, which, originally kind of last place, they didn't do too well, to now being able to top the charts, make it to the semifinals here, they've improved a lot. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they have the same kind of core players that they've had. Just a couple of changes every kind of season, every new year comes through. But you've got Creed, Warchi, Dracomariano, these guys that have been playing together for so long, and they just mesh well.
What do you think as we move into picks and bans in just a moment? Who do you think maybe one standout player on either side you have to be careful of getting super comfortable in some of these picks and bans?
My eyes are probably on Rapio
Yep.
when it comes down to Pikarinoobs. I think the jungle right now is definitely where their team was excelling. Again, a lot of that game against Freshly Forged was won because of really excellent Thor dunks. But my eyes are on Warchi for the Papis. He's always been like, maybe not, I don't want to say hit or miss, but he's the playmaker. And sometimes if he doesn't show up, the team might collapse without him.
Well, I guess that's the nature of Hunter, right? You hit or miss. We'll jump into picks and bans to see which direction these teams take. I imagine, the meta from EU to NA will be relatively similar, at least with these first few weeks going under. Lots of Umoja bans, lots of Camazotz bans, emphasis on the Odin as well. Kukulkan, notably first banned out here. That is the Umoja from Pikarinoobs to answer back. Why maybe take Kukulkan off the table?
Honestly, this seems like Papis understand, one, where their matchups are going to be, and specifically how much the solo lane has been impactful.
Sure.
A lot of this, specifically Kukulkan and Osiris, are very good at controlling their own lane. They can fight you on equal footing, even if you are a typical lane bully. And when they rotate over, they have really impactful team fights. And when I say really impactful, I mean everyone that they hit, if they choose to sit on you, you're going to feel their presence, the duration of it, and admittedly, you might not live that long.
Go back home!
Well, I'm not surprised by anything I've seen from the Pikarinoobs to start off. Umoja, Persephone, Camazotz. As I mentioned going into this, that's pretty much straight up very similar to what we saw from a lot of the bans yesterday. Odin, a huge talking point in our games yesterday. I think needs to continue to be a big talking point not only today, but throughout the start of this season. That's a great first pick here for the Papis.
And what I love is he's just so ambiguous right now.
Right.
A lot of people, I see Warrior, I instinctively think, okay, solo lane. But we've seen him run in support, and that is kind of where an impact lane can be formed. You have a long-range stun, you set up your Hunter. It's easy kills if you're able to get that. Plus, once you get the cage online, you're starting to lock them down, especially with the new way it works. If you leap out, hey, cool, you're taking damage. You have to break that wall down. Even if you use Phantom, you're taking damage when you exit the ring. So you have to be a little more careful around that.
There is battle to be
we are sticking in kind of the family here with Heimdallr and Thor as the next few picked up. Heimdallr, I think, has maybe potentially similar flexibility to that Odin. I mean, maybe a little bit less so. We've seen him in the Hunter role. We've seen him in mid. I think a few off games we've casted off camera. He's been in the solo lane even.
And that's one of the ones that's interesting. He does have that flexibility. I don't think we're likely to see him go over to solo.
Not quite as much.
But it really depends. Mid versus long lane is what do you want to run him with? I've been seeing, if you pick up a Morgan, she's going long. You're sending your Hunter into the mid. But with her off the table, you are maybe looking at more standard mages with Kukulkan taken off the board, which is literally my only point of reference for Pikarino, the mid laner for Pikarinoobs. I don't know where he's likely to go, but we've seen how impactful Merlin can be in the right hands. It wouldn't be surprising to see something like him maybe want to come through later.
And I see Batz and Xing both picked up, and I talk about a lot of the bans that were occurring yesterday. Both of those gods, I think, were banned out pretty heavily and didn't get to see a lot of play. Talk to me a little bit about the Xing and what he brings to the table.
Either beads burner, depending on how you want to look at it, or just easy setup for kills. I mean, you throw them into a Heimdallr, 2 cleave autos, all of a sudden you're hitting a ton of people. It's a lot of good damage for him as well. He is probably one of the more aggro supports that are in the game, at least in terms of Guardians. Like, if you're looking to try and match what I'm assuming is going to be the Odin on the other side now, that's a good way to be able to do it and still have kind of a flexibility of magical damage in your lane.
What do you think about the Janus pickup here?
I like Janus, although he definitely does have his place. Is he going to be able to control the game over the Kukulkan or the Hell? That's going to be a completely different story, and that I think is going to be up to Pikarino to showcase what he can do.
Well, we've touched on the Pikarinoobs a good bit. The Papis, I think, have a pretty strong composition for themselves as well, though.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. Hell, a lot of healing. I expect to see things. Divine Ruin's going to be a very good item. We might even see a Cursed Aunt come out later. Something to deal with that, because once the team fights come online, that's a different story.
Thank you very much, Gormizer. Game 1 of this best of 5 about to kick off. John Finch and Aggro, take it away.
Man, it's good to have Gore back on SMITE, ain't it?
I'll tell you what.
Let's get into game number 1 here between the Papis and Pikarinoobs. Appreciate Dawson and Gore there on the desk. Finch and Aggro as we move into the first game of the EU SCC qualifiers. We got a big grouping happening up. I thought we might see more of this. Is this just a play sport safely, or is this aggressive? There's the flow from the Heimdallr. They want action here. Forces the Chernobog into the dash, but Blink into the root locks him down, and Rapio, who else, finds first blood for Pikarinoobs?
I mean, if Warchi's gonna get the dash, get it earlier than that. You either accept that you're dead and then you could at least clear at level 1, or you take the death and end up losing it anyways. It's a tough spot now for Warchi because his clear got a lot worse, his beads are down, and there isn't that much you would normally have to worry about in a lane, in a duo lane, but Xing, Chen, and Heimdallr, that's a lot of CC that you probably have an opportunity to beads at some point and end up surviving. Good grouping by Pikarinoobs, and just Papis not using those vision shards well enough, I suppose, to see it coming.
That's right. Everyone has that vision shard in the second relic slot now that gives you a ward that you can kind of place down for free, so you got to make sure you're making use of it. But you're so right. This is trouble now for Warchi in lane. Xing Chen already loves to bully with all that extra HP 5, and Heimdallr's poke is nuts that he's able to get from range 2. Warchi could certainly be in trouble with that weakened clear.
And Dracomariano just in a weird spot because he's going to have to try and not only protect his hunter, but now has a higher burden than normal for clearing the wave. So it's not an easy position for him either. A lot of times you'll see supports take deaths in this instance where you think it's the hunter that's really in trouble, but the support doesn't really play around that well enough and plays like they normally would in an instance like this. So it's really up to both Draco and Warchi to understand what their role now is in this duo lane, especially for Warchi, who has spent a lot of time playing mid lane before this. It looks like Chekio and Warchi actually swapping roles entirely.
Some aggression over towards that Alpha Harpy, but they decide to give up on that one, at least for now. I guess that's something we're talking about a bit, right? I don't know if when you have pressure in lane and you're looking to do an invade, I don't know if Alpha Harpy is necessarily the right use of your time there.
No, not a level 2 or 3 necessarily, but with the Hand of the Gods that Mizzega picked up, it makes it a lot easier to do that. Now, it's 100 gold that he spent in order to secure that big Harpy on his own side of the map, but it is a little bit of golden experience. With a god like Xing Chen, you already highlighted his insane HP 5. He doesn't need that many potions, you would think, so the Hand of the Gods pickup hurts him less than it would some other supports.
Well, another thing worth noting is it looks like this duo lane's back a bit towards parity, is that this Hell, I feel like we so often see Hell mid nowadays, but because you already had the Kukulkan, probably one of the best mages nowadays, then you got to put this Hell over into the solo lane. How is this matchup going to go for him, I guess, where they're trying to wait on this Hell to come online?
I think that it's a matchup where if it's just overpowered USB versus Creed, it's not too bad for Creed. They both have tools that make them pretty comfortable in this matchup. Cerberus has innate anti-heal that's even better in this matchup because he receives the healing, so you're taking that away from Creed and boosting your own sustain in that lane. But at the same time, there's no way Creed ever gets ulted by overpowered USB. You just stand in light stance and cleanse it, and you never have to worry about it. But if Rapio comes over, it's pretty easy to force that cleanse with the Cerberus ult, then dunk you with the Thor. Creed does have beads, so that can help him, but if you're far enough off the lane, no amount of CC immunity is really going to save you from damage like Thor and Cerberus. I'm really looking for Creed to make the impact later on, though. You don't pick Hell for the laning phase. You pick her for the big groupings later on, and the ability to get you out of guaranteed CC ultimates like Cerberus and like Xing Chen. It's going to be very important for USB and Mizzega to communicate and stagger those ultimates because that cleanse will negate fully one of those every time.
It shouldn't be too hard either, like you said. Those are fairly readable as far as those ultimates go. Another thing you brought up, though, is Rapio going to be looking to put pressure on Creed? And we actually saw yesterday that the junglers sometimes are spending a lot of time over in solo lane. I think that's one more of those things that's very open here in Season 7, is where is the jungler be spending a lot of their time? There's more farm now. I think our junglers are going to spend more time actually jungling, but also, just like this, where they look for ganks could be critically important. Is Rapio does not have that ultimate. Looks like Creed recognized that he's here, but that could be enough to save him. And he goes teleporting to the hammer, and they still get the kill. Creed had an idea, I think.
It just didn't. Again, if you, no amount of CC immunity or anything like that saves you from being that far up the lane against damage like Cerberus and Thor, but it looks like Papis have a rotation coming.
A little bit late getting here is Markus, but certainly once more. That's a good wall, though. Perfectly cuts off Markus, and that ends that engagement. So now Pikarinoobs up 2-0 on top of the Papis. One with that first blood they were able to find way back at the beginning of the game, and now off a good gank from Rapio.
Just not a great ultimate from Markus either. Waits a little bit too long. The overpowered USB's easily able to jump out of it. I don't know if they were trying to chain CC him with the Odin there, and it just didn't go off, but either way, overpowered USB is able to jump away pretty freely. I think the big thing that I'm going to be looking for, though, Finch, we saw a team that competed at the Xbox level for a long time yesterday in that hype unit squad have a really good lead and play team fights really well and start to get themselves a lead in kills, but they struggled when it came to understanding how to abuse the map, understanding how to expand that lead, and really choke out the enemy team. I want to see if Pikarinoobs can do a better job of that than Hype Unit did yesterday. That's the key. These guys know how to brawl. They know how to press their buttons effectively. They're good players. But how good is your macro game? How good is your teamwork is what's going to really let you succeed at this level.
That's where we oftentimes see the biggest differentiations between teams, even in the SPL, right, is how well you can convert those early to mid-game leads into clean ending of the game. And I do want to give Hype a slight bit of credit. You know, Leon was not there. Perhaps that might impact that exact decision-making process, but could be trouble, though, over in the solo lane for Creed. In comes the dunk. That doesn't land, but the wall good. Can't cleanse through that, but they can't keep up the chase. Maybe they can. A good ultimate from the Stygian Torment brings Creed right back. The heal keeps him alive, but this should be a kill once they commit to it. USB gets the credit, and they're out cleanly.
Warchi used the ultimate just to try and slow Rapio and overpowered USB, but that didn't commit. I don't know if he really wants to make that rotation fully, but overpowered USB did take a decent amount of tower shots on that right-hand side, but there's the perfect use of that bait.
Big ultimate drop to the middle lane is not going to be able to find the kill that they were looking for from Chekio. Instead, has to deal with a little bit of pressure from this Xing Chen. Backs up, though. Not the only one expended. I think Davey dropped his ultimate, 2 over and left us through space and time. Nearly clips Chekio, so Davey perhaps having a bit of a skirmish over there with Warchi, and that's why Living Nightmare came out.
Maybe, but it didn't. Maybe it was in response to that ultimate.
Overpowered USB in some trouble. Caught out. Dracomariano is the one that gets kill credit for that as they lock down the dog. Finally, the Papis now on the board.
So now the Papis are starting to group up a little bit better in the mid lane, but still, you gotta like the way that Pikarinoobs have played it so far. Rapio's been in the right spots. He's been a part of every kill so far for Pikarinoobs.
Yeah.
Overpowered USB with a bit of an ambitious rotation towards mid without that ultimate. He doesn't have a big power spike right now. It's really common to see solo laners finish their second or third items and then start rotating mid to try and affect mid-harpy fights because they are so much stronger than the mid jungle at that point, but that really isn't the case for overpowered USB quite yet. He still just has that Void Stone 2, so it's not a guaranteed kill or guaranteed that he can withstand all that damage. That time a much better ultimate by Markus pinned overpowered USB perfectly with that Fear No Evil.
We're going to need to see a lot more from that, from both these junglers too. And if you thought Gore might miss a step coming back to SMITE, he certainly didn't. Highlighted how important Rapio was going to be for Pikarinoobs, and he's been right this entire game, right? I mean, especially on a pick like Thor, even still just such a priority jungler nowadays. Rapio going to continue to be that engine for them throughout this early to mid game, I'm confident. But like you said, Thor getting kills in the early to mid game, that's something that every top level jungler should be able to do. It's going to be a question of how well can you translate that into that late game beyond.
And that's where the great Thor players really separate themselves, and where the Thor buff really made a huge difference because it opened up his late game to really be impactful instead of pretty lackluster than it used to be.
Marino getting a bit aggressive. Could not find the stun with Gungir's Might. Does drop down the cage, but still gets grabbed by the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel. But as you said, Creed there to get him out. Up to the sky goes Rapio and looking for a dunk target through space, and time comes through. They're really committing to Creed. For some reason, Rapio doesn't come to this. That means they don't get the backup they need. Creed should be out.
I think Rapio was too far. I don't think he could land that close.
Well, Fear No Evil ends up coming out from him. That should help out for Markus, getting more engaged in this fight for the Papis. Warchi shows up to the fray as well, and that's Pikarino down. Ultimate from Chekio does not find much. That should be everyone on Pikarinoobs out, but Papi's looking much better now, finding this nice kill.
And using that global presence from the Chernobog, huge on that right side, guarantees that Pikarino will fall himself. Out of mana, no ultimate. And a big investment into Creed, as you highlighted, between overpowered USB and Pikarino both dropping their ults. But with Rapio being just a little bit out of range, and the fact that it was a Genji's Guard rush from Creed, didn't finish the boost with that extra magical protection, ended up paying off huge. Those 2 ultimates from Cerberus and Janus did next to nothing, and then is able to easily heal that up right afterwards.
And it really is, that's why it's so critical that Rapio wasn't there, right? That's what the punish is with the magical in lane, but a physical jungler is that normally you catch them missing one of those protections. But Creed, fortunately enough, was only fighting magical, so it works out well. Another thing that was huge for Warchi is that there really wasn't much up on the map for Davey to get when he makes that rotation. I was looking in the jungle. Purple buff was down, red buff was down. Really, Davey just kind of stood around, went back to lane, got that wave. Really, Warchi didn't miss much at all.
Missing a wave in order to make sure that your team doesn't lose a team fight on the right-hand side and picking up a kill for yourself, totally worth your time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that those Chernobog ultimates, you'll sometimes see players lose a little bit more than they gain, but it's for the better of the team. Warchi's a little bit behind, but that's okay. That's the way you want to be using your Chernobog ults in the early game.
But there is, we've seen it now, there's a lot of rotational ability on both these comps. Looks like Warchi's considering taking the duel with Davy, but elects not to. So that's going to be another big thing. How well are they able to use this Chernobog ult to move around? Because Davy's got some great potential with Bifrost, the Thor ultimate, and through space and time. Pikarinoobs are going to be zooming around the map.
It's very easy to do, and you have to really account for that. And Warchi's job is going to be able to keep track of at least where Davy is, because he's the one who's going to deal the most damage at this point in the game besides the Thor. The Rapio is off to a great lead. I like his itemization so far. That early brawler is huge.
Dracomariano rotating in, Bifrost usage from Davy strong. We talked about this a bit yesterday, but every time we see it, I'm going to bring it up at the beginning of the year. You want your Bifrost with you in lane on Heimdallr, not coming from the base. You want to be able to help you with those more shorter to medium range movements instead of the big long one from base.
And that's an interesting strategy from Davy. I don't think he'd placed the second one at all up until that point, so it made it easy for him.
Gold very low, but this is great to come in. They drop down the Chekio ultimate early, and that helps them secure the objective. Now, can Mizzega get out of here on the Xing Chen? Certainly can, backs back out. Nice use of the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel, but couldn't stop the objective.
Still didn't get a whole lot of relics either. I mean, Markus was there and had to use the beads, but otherwise the rest of the team standing pretty tall in that moment. That's what Kukulkan can do. It's you have to respect those early Gold Fury pulls. As soon as Rapio isn't on the left side of the map, we're pulling Gold Fury because we just have so much instant damage that it's hard to stop.
Rapio was hanging out. Thought he might be looking for a gank, but he was waiting on oracles instead, so he'll grab those for himself. And I love Chekio's mentality. You can kind of talk to that as a mid laner. When he thought he might be in trouble getting hit by the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel, he just dropped the ultimate, let me get my DPS onto the objective to see if he can secure it right away.
Was a little bit too early, and sometimes that can get you in trouble where you go, okay, I need to use the ult now, but all you do is put it in steal range for the enemy team. If Rapio was lurking, if Pikarino had fired off that ultimate, that does open the window pretty easily, actually, for that counter steal.
Rapio is looking for another solo side gank, as we thought, and Creed very close to the tower line. The dunk finds nothing, neither does the hammer. Easy job avoiding that from Creed, and Rapio gets nothing out of the gank this time.
I like the idea, wait until Creed switches into that dark stance so he can't insta-cleanse himself, and then try and go for the dunk, but Creed had actually used that Inspire heal to give himself some movement speed before that even started.
A little bit too fast. Nice job from Chekio getting back out of danger there in the middle lane. And I like that we're seeing this Odin from Dracomariano be so active. He's been rotating around a lot, trying to make sure they can use this Odin as often as possible around the map. This is one of those points in the game where Odin can feel so strong, can still difficult to get out of the cage in a lot of instances, but that's just the back there from Warchi. He's trying to get back out of dodge.
Warchi did use the ultimate aggressively, though. Looked like he wanted to try and find Davy, but Davy, again, with good Bifrost usage, gets him out of danger. There's a lot of situations where you'd rather just have a dash on Heimdallr, like right now, because it would probably be up.
But fear no evil, it
Great
gets immune. Great uses of the ultimate there from Davy. Buys him time, not just time, but maybe can even turn this around onto Markus. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel brings the Moonbots right back. And those autos from Heimdallr, we all know by now, really chunk. Trying to get the rest of this kill is Mizzega, but cannot make it in. Big ultimate coming over the top, and Warchi flattens him, but Pikarino does make sure that Markus gets traded back out 1-for-1.
Overpowered USBs on the rotation as well, so don't be surprised if Pikarino want to fight.
Dracomariano drops down the cage, though. That should buy some time for the rest of Papis to disengage. Since he in Torment does not find anyone, neither does the stun, so USB doesn't really get much out of his rotation. Meanwhile, Creed looks like just took this time to go back to base.
And that's something that the Hell may have been out of mana. Doesn't have teleport, so it's harder for her to try and join and affect these fights easily. But what a play by Davy. I think
nasty, isn't it?
Goremizer did a great job of highlighting how well Pikarino and Rapio played up against that stacked EU team, Deathwalker squad, but Davy got first blood in that game, seemed to play very, very well in the Hachiman. Beautiful use of that ultimate that time to give himself CC immunity and return a ton of damage onto Markus. Little bit off the mark on the knockup after the fact. Maybe if they could have kept that CC chain going, it would have resulted in an earlier kill. And another thing that I'm going to be looking to as the game goes on is that Pikarino's ultimate in that moment wasn't in the spot that you would necessarily like it. It's a little bit too late to follow up off the Xing Chen ult, and that's a hard execution play anyways, to follow up off an ultimate halfway across the map. But it was there really to try and do damage instead of chase. If you just provide portals to chase a little bit more south, I suppose, towards the Order side base, it's much easier. And that's the big thing with Janus players, is how well can you use that ult.
Aggressive from the Xing Chen. That does force out the beach from Kukulkan there to lock him down too. Forces the ultimate out defensively, and now Xing too low, half HP, even lower. Overhand smash almost enough, but they'll even commit the cage from Dracomariano, but Rapio has found Chekio all by himself. Finally, Dracomariano gets the kill. I think exiting the cage might have done that one. It's 1-for-1 so far.
Can't get out of the cage. You got to break it. That's not going to work anymore against old Odin. That would have been a great play, but this current iteration, that's not going to work for you. Still, trading support for the enemy mid laner, just as Pikarinoobs traded their support for the enemy jungler on the left-hand side in that skirmish earlier. Totally fine. And Xing doing his job of getting in there and getting purification beads. I'd like to see him lead with that root, though. I mean, the root really forces you to beads pretty cleanly most of the time, and then your ultimate gets to be really impactful after the fact. I don't know how I feel about leading with the whirlwind instead of either forcing them to make the decision and blow cooldowns just off that blink knockup.
Could have been quite powerful for them. Looks like Pyromancer being taken, though, by the Papis, and really not anyone around from Pikarinoobs to try and slow this one down. USB is in range, but not going to make it in there in time. That's good heads-up play from the Papis. Fury wasn't quite up at the back end of that fight, so instead coming over, grabbing Pyromancer while Pikarinoobs aren't there.
Interesting that Davy's not going with the rage build at this point. That's been all the rage. Get it? As of late, but it's really the execution early on. I do think crit on Heimdallr is excellent. You just do too much damage with it.
This could be a pretty critical fight 16 minutes in, though. Primal Fury being looked at by both teams, but started by Pikarinoobs. The ultimate not there for Warchi here for this fight. Rapio is a little bit off coming up too, but they're close. Should be here for this, especially with it now being a bit more drawn out.
And this is exactly what Hellcops want to do. Take these longer fights.
Perfect one. They got the Cold Fury quite low. Way in the back. Chekio's already been dunked as Primal Fury has been grabbed, but Chekio has made his way back out of there. That's huge for the Papis, but they want to keep re-engaging using that through space and time. Ultimate staging and Torment grabs one. That's Markus early on has been removed. Creed now being followed, slowed down by Pikarino, but has the cleanse to keep him going. Stunned even through the Aegis duration. The Whirlwind trying to keep the rest of the team zone, but Pikarino finds Creed. In comes Warchi, knows that the Janus is low, but can't make it. The dunk, though, from Dracomariano lands to flatten him.
But Draco's now in trouble. Davy sends him packing on a trip, and the rest of Pikarinoobs going to try and kill him when he lands.
And Dracomariano comes back low HP, but has that Dungir's Might charged up. That forces everybody back, buys him quite a little bit of time. Meanwhile, Mizzega now stuck next to the Kukulkan, trying to take him down if he can, but it's tough getting in. Has the root that forces out the Aegis from Warchi. Jump over from USB, and there's a bunch of low HP targets right here. Warchi the first one to fall, but now the tower starting to get involved. The dunk from Draco, too, makes it another death in favor of the Papis.
USB just a little bit too greedy there to take that many tier 2 tower shots, but at the end of the day, that's a great fight for Pikarinoobs, and it's really all thanks to Rapio. He finds the perfect target with that ultimate. Chekio is standing waiting to try and secure that Gold Fury, and Rapio dunks him, knows he doesn't have purification beads, messes up the secure. That means the Gold Fury, Primal Fury, I should say, goes the way of Pikarinoobs, and they get a lot after the fact.
Markus even able to find a nice cleanup kill onto Rapio towards the end of that, so that does even things back a little bit towards the Papis. But this just goes to show how difficult that these team fights are going to be, and it's because of all of this mobility from Pikarinoobs. I don't know how this Kukulkan, with relatively low mobility, is going to stay safe in the back. They don't even have that much peel.
And I was highlighting the ability to use that Janus ultimate to chase in these team fights. That is a much better ultimate that time by Pikarino. Putting it through the red buff means that you've got better chase options because it doesn't let teams run through back camps like a lot of teams will like to do. Instead of going in between their tier 1 and tier 2, it gets you on top of them as quickly as possible and cuts off their best escape path, which is just straight south. A very, very good Janus ultimate that time.
You talked about with Davy getting crit. Looks like he is now starting to work on it as Mizzega ends up caught out in the jungle trying to fight up against Dracomariano, but not too much coming from it. Looks like these teams really do want to stick around and maybe heavily commit to this one. Markus, the one stuck in between a couple members. Good leap allows him to retreat, but Mizzega moves in with the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel. Markus drops the Fear No Evil and gets pulled back. Rapio's in the sky as well, but just comes right back down, looking for Warchi in the back, doesn't get much. Meanwhile, Creed hanging out inside the cage. That's Dracomariano's on his own side, so he's A-okay for now. Everybody makes it back to the tower, despite a lot of ultimates being used.
And again, these fights favor the Papis. They have the hell. They want these longer engagements. They want to just trade ultimate for ultimate because they've got good siege potential between a Kukulkan with Polynomicon and Warchi on the Chernobog who can siege towers very safely. And look, their health bars are none the worse for it. They're plenty healthy.
But I mean, if we could talk about the good ultimate from Rapio in that fight around the Gold Fury, this time he comes back towards Warchi to the back of the fight. Maybe the call was that they didn't want to heavily commit, or he thought he had more opportunity there against Warchi. What did you see?
No relics on Warchi is the call. So if he knows that if he can land on top of him, Warchi's insta-dead. That at this point, with 4 items completed, Thor has one-shot potential. Warchi separated. He knows that he can't get cleansed by Creed or healed with that Lotus Crown. You don't have to worry about any of that. I don't mind the call from Rapio, because if he lands it, he kills him. At some point, you just got to say he went for the play and missed.
More of an execution error than anything, and Pikarinoobs want to try and punish an aggressive Papis, who grabbed the tier 1 and left. There's the cursed donk that Gore thought of on the desk, certainly coming out to try and shut down this hell now, so they want to commit to Creed while they can. Through space and time has been used as well to create an avenue through, but Dracomariano keeps cutting up the fight with this cage. No one can push past. Papi's now considering a resurgence, powered up by this hell. A good ultimate from Markus brings USB back to the Wolves, and Warchi cuts him down.
No Davy yet, because he's trying to put out as much damage as he can, but he walks right back into that whirlwind. A good fight so far for Papis, but Rapio's right there.
He lands in the back, but Dracomariano found himself a double kill, removes Mizzega and one more underneath the tier 2 tower. Rapio forced now to use all his relics to try and make it back out, but Creed on a mission has to turn back around. Got to get the tier 2 first here, fellas, but I love this fight for the Papis. This is huge to turn this game around.
I mean, Draco was a star for this team basically all of last year, even when the Papis had their rough patches in that EU minor league. 6-0 on the Odin. Bottom of the player damage chart, so maybe a couple last hit opportunities, but these cages have been phenomenal.
They really have limited the options of Pikarinoobs. This left side Phoenix, all but a formality at this point, as 2 members of Pikarinoobs cannot defend against 4, or rather 5. So that should be it for this siege for now. The Papis are going to take this opportunity to start falling back, but this hell cleanse, or the healing, all of it that she provides for them, it's starting to feel like it's too much for Pikarinoobs.
And they just don't have a good mid-mage at applying Divine Ruin, and that makes a world of difference. Janus, I know that I talk about how much I hate building Divine Ruin on all the time, but this is genius.
And they know now, because of that global queue, right, that all of the Papis went over to try and grab the Fury. This should be for Pikarinoobs. A couple members, though, have sniffed this one out. Markus on the way. Warchi coming back in with that Living Nightmare as well. So this will be a battle over the objective, but Warchi trapped in the Fire Giant pit. Knockup lands on multiple members, but a big ultimate comes out for Markus to spread the fight out even further. Rapio falls first, but Markus right there to fall behind him. It's chaos now around the Fire Giant. David gets one, Markus another. Members falling on every side. 3 for 2, but Papis get the Fire Giant. Pikarinoobs overstep.
Thanks for starting this up for us, fellas. Y'all mind if we just get the Fire Giant buff for ourselves? A 5v2 was a great fight there. 5v3, I should say. Markus, Draco, and Warchi get the job done. Just the 3 of them, all up against all 5 members of Pikarinoobs. And that's what I was about to say, was that this game has felt back and forth, and these fights has felt close. The gold lead is not. That was a 9K, 7-9K lead before that play happened around the Fire Giant. Now it's 10K, 2 Phoenixes down. I mean, Pikarinoobs, I just don't know how they come back with this type of composition up against a hell. They've got to find a way to blow the cleanse, but then she has beads, and she's super tanky, but she's still outputting some good healing just based on how many cooldowns she has. They aren't healing for a lot every single time, but it's heal after heal after heal that's really stacking up quickly.
That's such an impressive play from the Papis, man. I say it all the time with these big rotational compositions, that the one place where it doesn't do you much good is when you're already where you want to be, right? And now the Papis, with just Warchi's ultimate for covering ground the same way, were able to come in and match that play on the Fire Giant. I still do think that the call was the right idea from Pikarinoobs.
I agree.
It's just that the execution, man, from Papis was really good to respond to it. Clearly, someone on that team had that in the back of their mind, that that was a possibility, and that potentially is a game-saving play.
I don't think there were a whole lot of wards on that side of the map for the Papis. I think that was just game sense that made them think, hey, where is everybody? What could they be doing right now? And that's a good in-game practice to have, which is what's the worst-case scenario? What's the one thing that really punishes us for this play, and then seeing if you can play around that and make a contingency plan around it. Papis don't waste any time. They get their hands dirty, they get in there, and they stop Pikarinoobs from making a big play to get themselves back in the game.
And these are both experienced teams. We mentioned these console players have been playing for a while, but the Papis have been playing against SPL and SML in really good level competition for a long, long time now. So that's the kind of thing that, you know, that has probably happened to the Papis before, right? That they got that Gold Fury back and they lost an objective, and now a more learned team was ready for it. But this fight is going to happen outside of the Phoenix. Pikarinoobs move forward. Ultimate comes through from Chekio, doesn't find a ton, but USB is able to make it back out of the cage. Markus, though, locks down Davey. Rapio dunks in, but it's to his own grave. He won't be coming back up, and that means the Papis can move into the Phoenix. Warchi dives to the back, gets rid of USB. We won't be seeing much more from Mizzega as well. A full-on deicide as Papis run over Pikarinoobs.
I mean, that's just the Hell comp. I mean, you want to know why you pick Hell and put her in solo lane and things like that, and what you're picking that Hell for. It's not the laning phase where you get ganked a couple times and you're like, I'm Hell, you know, I'm not really doing a whole lot. It's these 5-on-5 groupings. I don't think Papis lost a single 5-on-5 the entire game outright, and it was because of that Hell healing. It just made it so difficult to all in the composition.
Yeah, man, we talk so much about the rotational potentials from Pikarinoobs and how strong that might be, and I think it did help them a lot throughout that mid game. But once things got a bit later, when it wasn't so much about showing up to the fight first, but it was just executing the fight, that was when the Papis were the ones that ended up starting to come out on top a bit more. This is a huge game one from them, but it was close, back and forth. So who knows what's going to be happening in game two? A quick break, and we'll be right back.